thank Hashem that we're able to learn every day, every morning. And this is our learning Hashem the basic Megillah immediately. Refuah Shlema to Yechiel Nassim ben Sarah, Aaron David Alevi ben Menucha Lester, and Ram Rafal ben Sarah. Okay, today we'll start Daf Beis Amid Beis. Where do exactly? It's Masnisin the Leiki Haitana. It's about halfway down the page. It's towards the end of a line. From the lines, it's 4 lines from the wide lines, I think. Yeah. Gemara says Masnisin the Leiki Haitana. That our Mishnah doesn't fit with the Brisa. The Tanya, because it was taught in a Brisa. Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha Imer, our Mishnah said, what's considered a walled city? A walled city is a city that's been walled from the days of Yeshua ben Nun. Right at the beginning. In the days of Yeshua ben Nun, that means from the time that they entered into the land of Israel.
But
afterwards, even if the wall came down, it's still considered a walled city. But if a wall was built later, after that, then it's not counted. However, the Brisa says no. The Brisa says that Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha taught. Yeshua ben Karcha is we've explained. He's the son of Rabbi Akiva. He says that from the days of Achashverosh, which could make sense as well. Achashverosh is the story of Purim. So from that time, that's considered a walled city, right? From the time of the event. Okay, my time with Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. What's the reason for Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha to say that a walled city is from the time of Achashverosh? Seems so logical. It says Ki Shushan, just like Shushan. Ma Shushan mekavetzchem meis Achashverosh v'ker mechamisha asar. Just like Shushan was walled at the time of Achashverosh. So, also any city that was walled from the time of Achashverosh, you read on the 15th of Adar. That's when you read the Megillah. The Tana Didan my time. What's the reason for our Tana that says, forget about Achashverosh? It doesn't say forget about. But that's not the determining factor if it's considered a walled city. It says, Yalef Prazi. Learns from a verbal analogy in the Torah. There's one pasuk in the Torah that says an open city. There's another pasuk in Megillah Esther that says an open city. I'm going to say that just like the pasuk in the Torah that was referring to an open city was open from the time of Yeshua ben Nun or Moshe Rabbeinu from that time, so to a Megillah, that's what it's referring to. So it goes like this. In the Megillah, it says Al Kein Hayudim Aprazim. So therefore, the Jews that sit in the open city, they're going to celebrate on the 14th. But the ones in the walled city will celebrate on the 15th. And over there it says, Levad Miar HaPrazi Harbi Maida. There, Moshe Rabbeinu was telling them about the war with Og Melech HaBashan and all the cities they conquered. So besides for the cities, the open cities, besides for the many open cities that they conquered. Now, just like over there, it says open city. So too, by the Megillah, when it says open city, it's referring to open from that time. Yeah, I don't know why the Gemara can't just say that if you set up a wall right now, then it will change the halacha. Just anything that's, we know that it's as if like today it doesn't need a wall. It needs to have been walled. And from what time? And now we have a machlekes. Our Mishnah says from the time of Yeshua ben Nun, and Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha says, it would have been better if Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha would say from Yeshua ben Nun, I'd be able to remember it. But Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha says from the days of Achashverosh. Okay. So,
I wonder what cities have been walled in the time besides for Yerushalayim and Shushan.
China. How old is the wall of China?
I don't know. I don't know. That was to keep the Mongols out, I think.
It's going to be confusing because I think the wall was built several times. So
under certain sections were built under certain periods of time.
Yeah. Prazi is what we're talking about. Prazis Teshev Yerushalayim. Prazis is the open cities. Yeah, that's a different word. That's mefuzar u'mefayrad. Mefuzar u'mefayrad is a different word. Maybe that's the pazer in the trap because your voice goes all over the place. Pazer. Okay. So that's the source. Goes back to Yeshua ben Nun. That's the source of the author of our Mishnah. Gemara says, "Bishleima Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha." We can understand Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha layamar ketana didan why he doesn't accept the opinion of our Mishnah. Where our Mishnah says, what is considered a walled city only if it's walled back from the days of Yeshua ben Nun. The less lay prazi. You have to realize we have a verbal analogy. The Gezerah Shava, we compare words, it has to come from tradition. If you don't have that tradition, you don't have the tradition. So he doesn't have the tradition. So then he has no source to say that it should come from Yeshua ben Nun. That's if it was walled at the time of Yeshua ben Nun, then good. He has no source for it. Elatana didan, my time Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. But why does our Tana not follow Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha? Rabbi ben Karcha says that it's from the days of Achashverosh. The Gemara says, my taima, you're asking for a reason why he doesn't? The highest say prazi, because you said he has a Gezerah Shava and he has a tradition. You can't ask a question. Because I think the second time that we have this sort of logic in our Gemara where the Gemara asks a question and the Gemara says, what? You're asking a question? Why are you asking a question?
Yeah, you mentioned earlier, I think there was a Tana who would ask questions and he got thrown out.
Yeah. But here it's saying like, it's, usually you have a question and then you give an answer.
But you can't argue with this. He says it's a custom. So what are you going to say?
Right. Yeah. When you have a question, you have an answer. So you say, okay, good. He asked a nice question. We give a nice answer. Here, he's asking a question. He's saying, what type of question is that? There's no question at all. Not that there's an answer. There's no question. Before you started, there was no question.
I'm just amazed that they wrote all this down, like every question. It's just
So why does, this might be a more fundamental part of Gemara that I just never really learned. So then why does the Gemara even bring it up? How do they make it onto the text of the Gemaras?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
There's going to be a Rashi on the next page there's nothing like it in the whole Shas that will partially answer your question. Mahava Hava. We'll get to it. We'll get to it shortly. Yeah. Okay. Why are we asking the question? We know the answer. This is what the question was a little different. Ela Shushan the Avid Kaman, the Dinan Kaman. Who is Shushan following? Like a Prazim, it's not an open city, but like a Mukafan, and it's not a walled city, because it wasn't walled in the days of Yeshua ben Nun. See, we're asking the question on the Tana of on our Tana, where did Shushan get its date from? It wasn't. If you say walled from the days of Achashverosh, Shushan was walled from then. But if you say walled from the days of Yeshua ben Nun, how much earlier is that? That's about 1,000 years earlier, right? 480 plus 420. It's 900 years. 900 years earlier. Plus 70. 970 years. It's close to 1,000 years earlier. So 1,000 years earlier, it wasn't walled. So why is Shushan being celebrated on the 15th? Amarava v'amrila Kedi. Rava says, and some say Kedi says, Kedi is either a Shem Chacham or Kedi means anonymous. Or said anonymously, or Shem Chacham, Rashi tells us in some places in Gittin. Shani Shushan Hayel v'nasa b'neis. Shushan has its own law because it has the miracle happened in Shushan, so it gets its own day. Why is that a reason? Well, they rested. Because in Shushan was the actual miracle where they rested on the 15th. Because they fought the battle for one extra day.
They rested on
We
the
celebrate
15th.
Purim because that's the day they rested, on the 14th. But because in Shushan they asked for an extra day to fight, so they rested on the 15th. So that's where it happened. So that's why we celebrate it.
You're celebrating on the day they rested.
The day they rested, yeah. Day after the battle. What is that? Yeah. Okay. So that's our answer. So we're talking about the author of our Mishnah. He compares it to Eretz Yisrael, to Yeshua ben Nun entering into the land of Israel, because he has a verbal analogy, prazi prazi. And Shushan is because its own reason, because that's where the miracle happened. The Tan of the Brisa, Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, he has all the same. All walled cities from the days of Yeshua ben Nun, from the days of Achashverosh, including Shushan, they have one rule for the whole thing, 15, because it was walled from the days of Achashverosh.
I have a question. When Yoshua ben Nun and Am Yisrael went into Eretz Yisrael, they didn't build a wall around them.
No, they probably had walls when they came in.
Some cities, yeah, I think like Yericho.
Yericho had a wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sound like I had a wall. I don't know where I is.
Yeah.
It's a small list.
Yeah.
There is a list.
But Yerushalayim wasn't built until
Tveria had a wall?
Shlomo.
Thought I read that at some point.
Tyre had a wall.
Oh, yeah.
Would you like to-
Tyre. What is Tyre? Tsur? What is?
In Lebanon.
Uh-huh.
But
Yeah.
all around.
Tveria has a wall. Tzfat has a wall.
Oh, so Tzfat is also on the 15th? You celebrate? The
Yeah,
wall goes
and-
back to Tzfat?
And Tveria also.
Uh-huh. Wow. Okay. I think the walls today must be from the Crusaders, though, not from not from back then. It must have been.
Yeah, that's still impressive.
Archaeologists think the part of the wall is really
Really.
The lower portion.
The lower wall
The
around
question is, wasn't all the cities in Israel with a wall at the time of Yeshua? Every city. Which city did not have a wall?
Right. But I think it says that.
by definition, it has a wall there.
Did it say when they went in Habemachanim in B'mivtzarim that they should check out, the spies should check out if they had walled cities, and then when they came back, did they mention if the cities were all walled? I don't remember what they said, but apparently, if the cities were not walled, that meant that people were strong, because they were so strong they didn't need a wall. Oh yeah, Sodom had a wall. Oh, sitting by the gate. Yeah, it was a gate with no wall. Okay, the Gemara says, "Bishleim latana didan hainu diksiv Medina ve'ir ve'ir." Yeah, this is according to the author of our Mishnah. We have two contrasts. We have Medina, and Ir ve'ir. Why? Because Medina is l'chalik ben mukafin chaim meis Yeshua ben Nun mukafis chaim meis Achashverosh. It's coming to tell me that when did the wall need to be? Original walls from the days of Yeshua ben Nun, and not later walls. So we have one contrast there. And then we also have Ir ve'ir nami l'chalik ben Shushan l'shar hayaros. We also have Shushan has its independent reason why we celebrate the Shushan Purim on the 15th, because that's where the miracle happened. It doesn't have to do with the wall of Shushan, it has to do with the miracle. So we have two types of compare and contrast. We have the wall, compare and contrast, and we have Shushan, the miracle happened. However, Ella, Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, Bishleim Medina l'chalak ben Shushan l'shar hayaros. I get the first compare and contrast. Medina. That means the pasuk says that this holiday should be celebrated in every country and country, or province and province. So that would tell me that there's different details. What is that detail? Well, did it have a wall or not at the time of Achashverosh? But there is no second contrast of Shushan to anything else, because the reason for Shushan was because it had a wall. According to our Tana, we have two distinctions: a wall from Yeshua ben Nun, and then how does Shushan come in? Because that's where the miracle happened. So we have two contrasts. But according to Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, it's all having the wall. So why do you have two distinctions here? Amalach Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha would respond to this. Does the author of our Mishnah have it so well? It's so really good, according to the author of the Mishnah. Given this, prazi Medina lamali. He anyways has a Gzeir Shava. He doesn't need the pasuk to tell me Medina. All right. The Gzeir Shava is not in the Megillah. The Gzeir Shava is from the Megillah to Parshas Dvarim. So he says, so then the Megillah doesn't need it. So why does the Megillah need to say Medina? The pasuk is telling me something else. Look at Rabbi Shua ben Levi. It's coming to teach me something Rabbi Shua ben Levi said. Because Rabbi Shua ben Levi dasa. It is coming to dasa. Rabbi Shua ben Levi says, Krach v'chol hasamachlai. When you celebrate Shushan Purim on the 15th of Adar, it's not just the city, but it's also everything around that city. Everything is, well, when you say krach, yeah.
Wasn't the war all encompassing, meaning like it also affected Yidden and other cities outside of Shushan?
Right.
So can we apply the same 12?
No, Shushan got an extra day to fight. So that's where the miracle happened. Otherwise, this is what Dr. Stein told us yesterday, that it's the surrounding area. Yeah. The surrounding area has the same halacha as that place, adjacent.
That's why I asked a question yesterday. So how did it say yesterday that, it would go on 2 days, the Krachim?
Oh, if they would travel to the city.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So it's contradictory.
Maybe it wasn't so close. The villagers went to the cities. It wasn't so close. It was a long walk.
So then it's not a krach around the city.
No. Krach, v'chol hasamachlai. We need to determine how far away it is. So the Gemara says, ad kama, how far away is it considered the area, right? The Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah v'yitem Rabbi Chia bar Abba k'mechamtan l'Tveria mil. Gives us two measurements: the distance from Chamsan to Tveria, and it gives us the distance of a mil. Source of the word mile. Mil is 2,000 amas, right? What's a mile?
5,000.
5,7
5,7 something. It sounds like a Jewish.
2,8 or something.
Oh my God! Exactly the number. Whoa.
No, it's 5,280 exactly.
Yeah.
5,280. Yeah. So
5,782. No, that's this year.
okay.
How many
So
volts are in a gigawatt?
Which is
okay. 300,000 kilometers per second. Blame a mil. Let it just say a mil. So Hakamash Milan, the Shiura de mil, Kamahave, Kimechamtan Latveria. It's coming to tell me that how big is a mil? You see, there's a discussion itself. How big is a mil? It tells me that a mil is that's the distance of a mil. I thought a mil was an exact number, 2,000 amas. You don't have to tell me that to teach me what a mil is. It's a little surprising.
Well, wait, it says 2,000 amas between 1,028 and 1,269 yards. doesn't it matter in how you're measuring an amma?
There's a
No, but I thought an amma is clear. What an amma is? It's an amma is 6 tefachim. A tefach is 4 fingers. So
says.
why
some
do I
say that,
need to give me a location to teach me how big the mill is? It's from here to there. If I know I can measure it with a.
Oh,
Usually they would use natural things to teach me measurements. They didn't have,
right.
so they're giving me a natural place, a natural distance. Okay. But because you mentioned Rabbi Yirmiyah, and some say Rabbi Chia Barabba, so now we're going to be quoting Rabbi Yirmiyah, and some say Rabbi Chia Barabba for the next few Gemaras. Yeah, just because of the author. So because we have this, the author is saying something, it goes on. How did we conclude? That Rabbi Shua ben Karcha, the reason why it says Ve'ir is because of what Rabbi Shua ben Levi said to teach me that the surrounding area of a city also follows that. Okay. Ve'amar Rabbi Yirmiyah v'teim Rabbi Chia Barabba. Rabbi Yirmiyah says, and some say Rabbi Chia Barabba says, Man sapach, seifim amram. You know what man sapach is? Man sapach is the letter, the double letters, the mem sofit, nun sofit, the lange nun, and the nun, however you say it. Tzaddik, the lange tzaddik, right? And the pei, or in English we say the final pei, final tzaddik, and the chaf, the final chaf. So those are the 5 letters that are doubled. So Tzeifim Amram, who taught us about that? The historians would tell you that it has to do with that to tell you where the word ends. So they only go at the end of a word, right? Otherwise, yeah, if they would write very close together, it was very important to have that. But whatever the case is, yeah, in Kabbalah, there's other things. These letters are represent other things. So Seifim, the prophets taught this. The Gemara says V'tizbara. Oh, that's a good question. That's just the beginning of a sentence. The Tisbara, do you really think so? Baksiv, but it says in the pasuk, Eila hamitzvahs, Eila hamitzvahs, these are the commandments, and we learn from that. How do the prophets introduce new letters? They can't introduce. The prophets can't introduce anything. They can warn us, they can follow what it says in the Torah and tell us that we should, based on that, we should do this and that, make a celebration or a fast day based on, because the Torah says we should pray or thank Hashem. But how do they just introduce a brand new letter into the text? 5 of them. What's going on? Rav Chizda says that in the tablets, in the luchos that Moshe Rabbeinu had, there was already a mem and a samach. Now, a mem is a closed letter, and a samach is a closed letter. The samach is no question. The question that we're asking is from the mem. If there was no mem, because the mem was an open letter back then, it was only the prophets, later prophets that introduced it. So how do you get the mem, b'nei sayayim? They didn't have a mem. Yeah. There's a Gemara Sanhedrin that says that the text of the Torah switched. There used to be a different font, we used different letters.
Yeah, you could see, I think.
We used to use the, what do they call it? Like a proto Paleo Hebrew. Paleo Hebrew. They used an old so according to that Gemara, there's a problem with this Gemara.
Yeah.
That's a contradiction to this Gemara, because this Gemara tells us that mem v'samach b'nei, the samach in the old Paleo Hebrew was like an X, I think, or something.
Yeah.
It wasn't the samach anyway.
Another Gemara.
Yeah, it could
Or
be.
something mark on the head or something.
Oh yeah.
A long time.
Oh, with Kamin Gama, they would put the oil on the head or something.
Something.
So anyway, there is Yerushalmi that says Ayin Amar Ablevi ben Bun Ayin Shebeluchis B'nei Sayomdim. It was really an ayin, and in Old Hebrew it was an ayin. Yeah. A friend of mine wrote something on this, or discussed this. Says that we have this whole thing with letters, shapes of letters. How does it work if the Old Hebrew was different? So he quoted Kedushas Levi. It says that as throughout the centuries, Ruchnius and Gashmius get more and more together. Like Matan Torah, there was like the Ruchnius can come together with. Before Matan Torah, everything was separate. Al Yainim was Al Yainim, and it's a big thing in Chabad. That the giving of the Torah makes the merging of Ruchnius and Gashmius. It says originally there was the light of the letters, but it didn't fit perfectly into the letters. And the letters that we have today fits better. So the actual, yes, even the letters and the Ruchnius of the letters didn't fit perfectly back then. And then afterwards, we changed the letters. Now it fits even better. Okay, whatever the case is, we have a question. How are you telling me that the mem was introduced later? By the Luchas, they had the mem. The Gemara says, you're right. Mahava hava, it really was there. But they didn't know which was at the beginning of the word and which was at the end of the word. Maybe the open letters were at the end. So the Tzayfim instituted that which one goes at the beginning, which one goes at the end. Yeah, it's always funny when the kids write. In the like preschool, they're learning letters and they write. Sometimes they write backwards, their name backwards. They don't get it. So also sometimes they write like with open letters or closed letters. They're trying to spell. So they didn't know where it was. They instituted. Okay, so Gemara says 1 second. They still can't institute anything because Seif Eila Mitzvah Shein Navi Asid Lachadish Davar Me'ata Eila Mitzvah. Can't change anything. How did they institute? Which one? What it used to be different? They can't switch it. It was forgotten how to do it. And then they instituted. Now, how was it forgotten? There's got to be a way you open a Torah. How did they forget it? This could be that there was a time when the Torah was lost until Yeshio found it. Remember, he redid. They did renovations in the temple, and they found the Torah. It could be there was a time when they didn't have it, they forgot it, and then during that time they instituted it. When they look back and they found the old Torah from Moshe Rabbeinu that he wrote on the day of his passing. So
that's when we started using the Hebrew that we're familiar with. No?
Oh, could be. No, I think it was from Ezra. Ezra, they switched the letters when they came back from the exile.
So we just learned an opinion that the common sages who ever changed the whole place.
Yeah, we just learned that the mem mansapach was instituted at a certain time. Those 5 letters were instituted, and the Gemara says they actually weren't instituted; they were reinstituted. That's what the Gemara says. It has the only thing that's like clearly connected is the name of the person that said it. We had an answer from Rabbi Yirmiyah and Rabbi Chia bar Abba. And now, Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba, let me tell you something else about him. He said the following as well. Yeah. Zalman, you take a look at this Rashi. Mahava Hava, Rashi says, "V'urcha de sugi de Gemara lahakshe solitaretz davar she'enai ad de tarach ma'amida al boria." The Gemara does trial and error to try to get, even though maybe we'll get to the final answer, we can get to the final answer right away, but the Gemara goes through, I read a Rashi. Okay. It's just such a chiddush. Yeah. It's a chiddush because most of the shiurim that you get in yeshiva go like this. They say, okay, now that the Gemara gives me the answer, so what was the Gemara thinking before? The Gemara was thinking before must have been something that we didn't have in the answer. So what exactly didn't we know? And it goes back to explain what we didn't know and what switched from the question to. Anyway, according to this Rashi, it says the Gemara knew the answer. It just was developing it to trial and error. Is it this? Is it that? It knocks away a lot of that back and forth.
Right, and I usually wonder about that also, but I guess that's the whole concept of the Gemara is like how it got to reach to wherever final decision. But what it said before was like it wasn't even a question, meaning like and then then why even bring it up? You're not bothering to answer it. You're not even gonna so then why even put it in the text of what it is?
Yeah, that the Gemara usually does. When the Gemara asks such an obvious question, like what's the source for such and such a mitzvah? It says, what's the source? It says it in the Torah. That's when the Gemara does. It's like such an obvious thing. The Gemara will say, Minalan, or that's what you're asking. That's clear. That's not a question. And then the Gemara redoes the question. What it meant was, I know this and that. My question was, do you have to whatever? It refines the question. That's what happened before. The Gemara says, what was it? My timer. What's the reason for the author of our Mishnah to say that? The Gemara says, what's the reason? You just told me that there's a pasuk. He says, no, what's the reason for Shushan? That wasn't clear. The Gemara refined the question. Okay. The Targum. The Aramaic translation of the Torah that we have in the Chumash, it says Unkelis on top. Mm-hmm. So where does that come from? That's Unkelis? It comes from our Gemara. Unkelis Hager Amru. That was written by Unkelis the convert, right? His uncle possibly was Hadrian. There's two versions in that Gemara, and he tells him, "I want to do business." Hadrian tells him, "Well, buy low and sell high." And so he comes back. Still applies. He comes back anyway after the soldiers come, and he converts it. Or the soldiers that come, he sends soldiers to not to talk to him, and they bring him back. He said, "Why did you convert?" He said, "I took your advice. I took a religion that was despised, and so." He translated the Torah. He becomes a student. Mipi Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua. He's a student of Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua, which are students of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. He's a student of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai's students, and he writes the Targum. Yeah, Targum Shel Neviim. What about the Targum of the prophets? That's not the Chumash. That's the prophets. That's Yonasan ben Uziel Amr Pichag Zechariah Malachi. Yonasan ben Uziel was a student of Hillel. He was a friend of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. He was the greatest of Hillel's students. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was the lowest of Hillel's students, right? So, and he says that the Gemara tells us that he got that translation from Chagei Zechariah Malachi. Is it possible that he saw them? I don't know. There was an earthquake when he wrote the Eretz Yisrael shook 400 parsais by 400 parsais. Yatsa Baskal Vamra, it could be figurative, or it could be literal. Figurative would mean that that the sages were in shock. How could you do this? He's doing translation. Art scroll Gemaras. People are going to stop learning. Made a big commotion. Papers going up in Yerushalayim on the walls. No one should buy the new Targum. That's what I mean, figurative. Literally, it means there was an earthquake. So a voice comes out and says, who's revealing my secrets? Amad Yonasan ben Uziel al Raglav. Yonasan ben Uziel stands up on his feet. It's me that's revealing it. But I'm not doing it for my own honor. Not doing it to make a bestseller. My name should be famous. I did it for you, for Hashem. The Torah should be clear. I translated so that everyone should have clear pshat. Okay, yeah, the Targum that we have today, I think the Frum world assumes that it's Yonasan ben Uziel, and the scholars say they call it pseudo Jonathan, right? They're not sure if it's like they do to everything. They always question how old everything is. So okay.
I thought Pseudo Jonathan was the character in Nietzsche Kadoozie. Isn't that it?
It's funny. Okay. So he did the Nevi'im. Now we have Onkelos is the Chumash. The Nevi'im is Yonasan ben Uziel. Who was the Greek? There was a Greek translation, Achilas. There's a Greek translation, Achilas, which they think may be Onkelos as well. I think that maybe it sounds.
Septuagint was a Greek
Yeah, but there was a Greek translation besides for the Septuagint, which was Achilas.
theory is that there's two Onkelos.
Oh.
One translates Aramaic and the other.
And Naftali's telling us that there's two Onkeloses. Yeah.
totally nemesis of it.
Okay. If there's two Onkeloses, it would resolve a very big question, because the Zohar says that Onkelos is a student of Hillel and Shammai. Now we think that there may be there's a word missing, and it's really a student of a student, or Al Pi Hillel v'Shammai. There's something we have to amend that piece. But if you say there's two Onkelos, then that resolves. Okay. He wanted to translate the writings, the Ksuvim, Tilim Mishliev, all of that. Daniel. Yatsa Baskal Vamralai, a heavenly voice comes out and says, Dayecha, you've done enough. My timer. What was the big deal? Why did they have to stop him? Mishum Dispekates Mashiach, because that would give us the time when Mashiach's coming. And that's supposed to be hidden. Like in this week's Parsha. Because Yaakov Legalis Sakates. We're not supposed to know. It's supposed to be hidden. It's supposed to be secret.
But he was just translating.
But in his translation, it would have been so clear. It would have come out when they think. What is it? Who said this? Rashi. Rashi says in Sefer Daniel, we would have had the on this translation. Yeah, that's what Rabbi Schwab's in his writings about the 168 years that's missing from the Persian Empire. He says that the sages took it out deliberately to confuse us when Mashiach's coming, because we'd be able to figure it out. That was his theory. Okay, V'targum shel Torah Onkelos Hager Amru. The Targum was said by Onkelos. We have this statement in the name of Rav. In Nehemiah, it says when they came back and they had this whole assembly, it says Vayikru b'Sefer Torah Selikim. They read from the Torah scroll Mefurish clearly, the same seichel. And they put understanding V'yavinu b'Mikra with understanding of the text. What does this mean? Vayikru b'Sefer Torah Selikim. They read from the Torah scrolls and Mikra. That's the actual text of the Chumash. Mefurish. With translation, it's a Targum. They read the Targum. This is before Onkelos. They had the Targum already then. The same Seichel Elu Apsukim. They made it with intellect. That means where to put the punctuation, where the pasuk stops. The Avinu B'Mikra, and they gave understanding. Elu Piskei Taimen. That's the cantillations, the trop. So, which is a type of commentary, right? The way you sing it makes a difference. So Va'amri Leila Masayers, and some say that's the words that are read differently than the way they're read, or spelled differently than the Masoratic text, right? That's the Elo Masayra. So that Ezra taught them, which means the question is that they had the Targum well before Onkelos. Rabbi Yechon ben Zakkai was at the time of the destruction, that's 70 approximately CE. His students, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua, would be over the next 30, 40, 50 years. Then their student is Onkelos. We're talking about the year 130, right? 120, 130. So, and Ezra is going back to 400 BCE. They clearly had the Targum well before Onkelos. They had it before, but they forgot it, and the same answer that we gave before, and then they reinstituted it. Why was I know they stopped him for translating Daniel and for Ksuvim because they didn't want Mashiach to come. They didn't want us to know when Mashiach's coming. We shouldn't have that. maybe we'll become disheartened if we see it's too long or something like that. So, but why was there an earthquake when he translated the prophets? So the Raisa Mefarshim Milsa, the Navi Ikamili, the Mefarshim Ikamili, the Mesasman. In the text of the Chumash, we had everything clear. Yeah, he adds in some things, but there weren't secrets there in the Targum that are being revealed. But in the prophets, there were secrets that were being revealed. And that's why that created that earthquake. The Ksiv, it's written. On that day, there was a great mourning, like eulogy, a mourning. Like the eulogy or the mourning of Hadrimain in the valley of Megiddo. Rav Yosef says, by the way, whenever the Gemara quotes Targum, it's usually Rav Yosef that does it. An explanation for that is given is that Rav Yosef was blind. We have the rule, Dr. Stein told us yesterday, a few days ago, that you're not supposed to say text by heart. Remember?
No.
Who said this? Who said that? Who told us? You're not allowed to say by heart certain text. You're not allowed. You have to read it from inside. So Rabbi Yosef, that was blind, would say by heart. So what was he allowed to say by heart if he can't say the Chumash and the Dvarim Shebiksav Yatar Shailam Malpeh? So he would say the Targum by heart.
I didn't say it. Somebody else.
Okay, was wearing that jacket.
We understand.
Okay, so Rabbi Yosef says, if not for the Targum of this pasuk, I wouldn't know what it's talking about. B'yoimahu Yiskei Mispeda B'Yerushalayim tells us what does the Targum say? You have to check this out. Yiskei Mispeda B'Yerushalayim K'Mispeda the Achav Baramri the Katal Yasei Adriman ben Tavriman. B'Ramas Gilad. B'Mispeda the Yoshe ben Amen the Katal Yasei Parachigir Bikas Megiddo. So it gives us two explanations. It's talking about prophecy that at a certain time is going to be such a terrible morning. It's going to be like the morning of Hadrimain and the valley of Megiddo. What's that referring to? Targum tells us that it's referring to Achav. Achav goes to battle together with Yehoshaphat against Amain. Who was it? They said Yehoshaphat goes to Achav, and they have this discussion that this nation nearby still has the city that belongs to them. Anyway, they called the prophets. Remember, we called like 400 prophets. They all said, "Yeah, you're going to go. You're going to win." And Yehoshaphat says, "Don't you have one prophet that's in the name of God?" And he said, "I have one, but he doesn't like me, and I don't like him, and something." They call him. And while they're calling him, the Tzidkiyahu ben Kanani says, "Oh, with these horns, we're gonna knock Aram." Yeah, it was Aram. And then the other prophet Michiel says, "No, he's a liar. It's gonna be you're not gonna even see the if there's a victory, you won't even see it. You won't even be around." Anyway, he says, "See, I told you, he doesn't like me." Anyway, they go to battle. They go to the battle, and I think he dressed up as a commoner or something. Anyway, a stray arrow comes out and hits him, and because he wasn't recognizable that he was the king. So it comes out and hits him. Well, anyway, who was that? The Targum tells us that it was Hadriman ben Tavriman that happened to be the one that killed him. And then he says, "I'm weak, bring me back," and he dies. And as the prophet said about Achav, that the dogs will lick the blood, and there was a prophecy how he's going to die. Anyway, that was the morning of that. Achav was a king for many years. And then Yoshia ben Amain, we had this in the Gemara, I think in Rosh Hashanah or something. He said that Para Nechei, in Tainus maybe, Para Nechei, Para the lame, was coming through for just for be friendly to come through, and Yeshio goes out and doesn't let him come through. He goes to, and he gets killed. So that in Bikas Megiddo, yeah, that was the battle of Megiddo. which the word Armageddon comes from there. Yeah. It was like a big disaster. That's why, that's a big, everyone is wiped out or something. Okay. Anyway, that's the Targum of the prophets teaches us that we wouldn't have known that without that Targum. Okay, Verisiani Daniel Lavadia Samara, a new piece. Daniel says, I saw the vision. It was a vision of a man in white with his arm was this and his legs were that, all different things. And it wasn't the statue of Nebuchadnezzar's dream. It was a man, and like light was shining out of something. Anyway, his eyes probably. And I saw the vision. They didn't see. The people with me didn't see, but they had a trembling and they ran to hide. Man Anashim, who are those people? So the reason why this Gemara comes in here, basically, the simple reason is Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah v'Itim Reb Chia bar Abba zeh Chagei Zechariah Malachi. It was those later prophets, Chagei Zechariah Malachi. They were with Daniel. They did not see the vision, but they were still trembling. Inu Adifu Minei. They're better than Daniel. V'iyu Adif Minayu, and Daniel is better than them. Inu Adif Minei. They're better than Daniel. The Inu Neviu V'Olai Navi. Daniel wasn't a prophet, according to this. He wasn't told to go relay messages to the Jewish people. He may have had visions, but not to tell over. But he's better than them because they didn't see the vision. Gemara says, my time of Yusuf, they didn't see it, so why were they afraid? It says even though they didn't see it, but their angel above was aware of it or saw it, and they trembled. Yeah. So you go to the Chalamite, sometimes we take the kids to the IMAX theater. The problem is the kids are all different ages. So what do you do with the little ones when you go to watch a video? So they come and sit you there, but they're nervous, they're afraid, the things are coming at you, So you don't close your eyes. So they say, but Mazlayo Chazi. No. Okay. Amar Ravina. Ravina says, Shma Mina. From this we see Haiman de Mavis, someone that's the Mivis, someone that's afraid. Afagav Diolai Chazi, Maslayo Chazi. Why is he afraid? There's something going on. He's not seeing it, but his angel is seeing it. Maita Kante. This sounds like a psychological thing, an explanation for phobias or something. Maita Kante. What should the person do? Likr Kriya Shema. Should recite Shema. Yeah. But if he's in a place where he can't recite Shema, then he should jump from his place for Amas v'ilai, and if that doesn't work or he's not able to, he should say the following: Easy debate the goats in the butcher shop are fatter than me. I guess it means like if you want to harm someone, there's a lot more meat over there. Yeah, the commentaries here would say, you should do tshuva. You jump from your place for Amas. And he should say that the goats are fatter. If I wanted to indulge in Gashmias, the goats are fatter.
That guy, he's got a bigger BMI.
Why are you pushing?
I'm just moving my.
No, don't.
That guy.
Okay. I'll leave it over here and a little bit behind, but we'll be able to daven. Have a good day, everyone.